Hey guys, in this video I'll show you a heavy attack Warden DPS build that can parse up to 121k and is basically the strongest heavy attack build ever. It's a bit more difficult to play than the heavy attack Sorcerer, which parses up to 115k, but even with an imperfect rotation, it should be roughly as strong as the easier to play Sorcerer build. When it comes to ESO content creation, there's lots of scams out there, so I wanted you to be sure this build actually works. So you'll be able to find logs in the description. Logs of me using this build in a bunch of veteran trials, and you can see footage from them on the screen right now. Later on in the video, I'm also going to show you the 121k parse on the trial dummy, and other trial dummy parses, with different gear. Just like every heavy attack build, this build focuses on amplifying heavy attacks with the Sergeant's Mail set, and the Empower buff, sourced from the Might of the Guild passive, procced by Ulfsild's Contingency. Warden is the perfect class for that, because of passives like Piercing Cold, which straight up boosts all damage done by 8%, and Glacial Presence, which buffs the chilled stats effect, which makes long duration skills, like Elemental Susceptibility and Arctic Blast, worth it, which gives us more time to channel heavy attacks. The build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. Starting off with skills. First we have Ulfsild's Contingency, with the Frost, Lingering Torment, and Force combination on it. It's your source of the Empower buff, which increases damage done by heavy attacks by 70%. Since Ulfsild's Contingency is a Mage's Guild skill, it will trigger the Might of the Guild passive, which grants you Empower for 10 seconds. It also deals decent damage on AoE and grants you the Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. Ulfsild's Contingency is delayed until the next skill cast, but whenever it's needed, you can activate it early by bashing your enemy. If you cast this ability as you're finishing your heavy attack, the Empower you gain from it will start working just in time to boost the final tick of that heavy attack you just finished. Use Scalding Rune instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Next we have Deep Fissure. This ability deals a lot of damage per cast and provides 4% critical damage through the Advanced Species passive. Next we have Barb Trap, a dot that will also apply Hemorrhage stats effect at the start, and grant you Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. It will also trigger the Slayer passive, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 3%. Next we have Inner Light, an ability which passively provides 7% max magicka, 5% from the skill itself, and 2% from the magicka controller passive. Next we have Banner Bearer, with the Magic, Cavalier's Charge, and Berserk script. You can change Berserk to Heroism, if you can rely on your healer, to provide the minor Berserk buff. Banner Bearer with this combination increases your magical damage by 6%, grants 60 weapon damage, thanks to the Celerity champion point, and grants minor Berserk or minor Heroism, depending on the script you used. It also severely decreases your sustain, but it's not an issue on a heavy attack build. Use Camouflage Hunter on front bar, and Winter's Revenge on back bar instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Wild Guardian is a free ultimate that has to be double barred, that summons a permanent bear pet that deals decent damage to your enemies. While the bear is summoned, you can activate this ability for 75 ultimate to command the bear to maul an enemy. It deals 100% more damage to enemies below 25% HP. Next we have Bullnetch, an ability that grants us a 5% damage buff and automatically cleanses a debuff every 5 seconds. You can recast it early if you need to cleanse an important debuff. The skill's duration is 25 seconds, but the 5-second 5% damage done buff refreshes at the end, so you only have to recast it every 30 seconds. Next we have Arctic Blast, an ability with a higher chance to proc the chilled stats effect, which deals increased damage, thanks to the Glacial Presence passive. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility, an ability which procs Burning, Concussed, and chilled stats effects, at the start and every 7.5 seconds, for 30 seconds. It will deal a lot of damage per cast, thanks to the Glacial Presence passive. And lastly we have Elemental Blockade, a ground dot that will constantly reapply your backbar weapon enchantment. It will also deal increased damage, thanks to the Crushing Wall set, and it will proc off balance if your supports aren't already doing it. Now moving on to situational skills. Whenever you need to sort something situational, replace Inner Light. First we have Resolving Vigor, a stamina costing kill over time which also grants you minor resolve, which reduces your damage taken. Use it whenever you need a self heal. Next we have Living Trellis, a magicka costing ability that heals you when you take damage, and at the end, which means you can spam it to constantly reproc the direct heal. Use it whenever you need a self-heal that you can spam under pressure. This ability can also target allies, which can be either a good or a bad thing, depending on the situation. And then we have Winter's Revenge, a replacement for Barb Trap, for trash fights and boss fights which require more AoE damage. Now as for rotation, I don't use a static rotation, so this is just a list of priorities. Simply recast abilities when they run out, and follow the list of priorities when there are multiple things to refresh. For maximum DPS, it's more optimal to switch from heavy attack weaving to light attack weaving when you have many dots to refresh, though it's not mandatory, and you can do massive DPS even while sticking to just heavy attacks. Always start a heavy attack roughly a second before off-balance immunity ends. This way you'll be able to fit 3 heavy attacks within an off-balance window. Use Ulfsild's Contingency if your Empower is out, or if it's going to run out by the end of the heavy attack you're channeling. Use Wild Guardian if it's ready, use Elemental Blockade, Deep Fissure, Barb Trap, Bone Edge, Elemental Susceptibility, Arctic Blast, and Ulfsild's Contingency. Keep in mind that you can pre-buff Ulfsild's Contingency, Deep Fissure, Bone Edge, and Arctic Blast before entering combat. Now as for passives, I am now very quickly going through all of the passives you should get on the screen. You can either pause the video or look up this list on the website guide. Now moving on to gear. This is the default setup. Surgeon's Mail, Unslew's Torment, Crushing Wall, and Until Mirror's Construct is what I suggest you to run if you don't want to ever swap your gear. But now I'm going to get into details and describe situational sets, which can be stronger than this setup in specific situations. For example, a default setup for trash packs would replace Unsul with Sulzan. And then I'll give you a bunch of alternative sets, which aren't stronger, but they're decent, and much easier to obtain, so you can use them before you get this gear. But before that, there are a few more things I need to explain. When choosing different situational sets, you can only replace Unsul's Torment, Crushing Wall, and Until Mirror's Construct. Surgeon's Mail is too strong and too crucial for this build to ever be replaced. Ideally, you want your second 5-piece set to be medium weight, but choosing a light set is also an option in dungeons, if none of your group members are providing any penetration. So let's go over the situational sets. First we have Mora's Whispers. Combined with one piece of Slam Crow, it's an alternative to Until Mirror's Construct in fights where you can't retrieve the Until Mirror axe. Dummy House is an alternative to Until Mirror's Construct if you don't have enough lore books to make use of Mora's Whispers. Sulzan's Torment is the best set for trash packs and for bosses that regularly spawn smaller adds. Next we have Highland Sentinel, the strongest set if you're able to stand still in a certain encounter. Usually, when using it, you should also change Until Mirror's Construct to Mora's Whispers or Dummy House, as Until Mirror's Construct requires you to stand very close to the boss, which means they'll be pushing you around, which will cause you to lose Highland stacks. Next we have Roar of Alkosh, a support set that allows you to provide 6000 penetration for your team, as long as they provide you with at least one synergy every 10 seconds. It's extremely beneficial to have at least one Alkosh user in groups. If your team isn't providing any penetration, your two most efficient options for getting it yourself are Alkosh and the Light Armor Concentration passive. And you will get better DPS with Alkosh, even though it's a support set, because medium armor passives are just that good. Next we have Noble Duelist, the best option for dungeons if you can't rely on your team to provide penetration and they're not providing you with synergies, which means you can't use Alkosh. Now let's go over a bunch of alternative sets you can use before you obtain the best gear. I'm going to list sets that are crafted, that drop from Overland, PvP, or from dungeons. So simply pick two sets that are easiest for you to get. As for crafted sets, we have Order's Wrath, New Monacolite, Highland Sentinel, and Tarkir Strike. As for Overland, we have Mother Sorrow, which is a light armor set from the Shan, we have Bakali Gourmet, which is a light set from Galen and Niflheim, and we have Dragonguard Elite, which is a medium set from Southern Elsewhere. And as for PvP, we have Deadly Strike, which is a medium set from Bruma. Keep in mind that crafted, Overland and PvP sets are tradable and can be bought from other players. Now as for dungeon sets, we have Stormmaster, which is a medium set from Tempest Island, we have Undaunted Infiltrator, which is a medium set from Arx Corinium, we have Undaunted Unweaver, which is a light set from Blackheart's Haven, and we have Tsogvin's Warband, which is a medium set from Frostbolt. And here's a few more tips. If you can rely on your supports to provide off balance, you can replace Bugbear Lightning Staff with an Inferno Staff. For purely single target fights with no odds that could accidentally eat your Bugbear enchant proc, you can change Weapon Damage enchant to Frost. And this is the most optimal setup for dummy parsing. It uses Highland Sentinel instead of Unsul's Torment, it uses Inferno Staff Bugbear instead of a Lightning Staff, and Frost enchant instead of a Weapon Damage enchant. And all of these are options that were already listed as situational components of the regular setup. Moving on to champion points. In the blue tree, you want to use Weapons Expert, which increases light and heavy attack damage by 20%, Deadly Aim, which increases single target damage by 6%, Mastered Arms, which increases direct damage by 6%, and Exploiter, which increases damage against off-balance enemies by 10%. Replace Deadly Aim with Biting Aura in AoE fights. In the red tree, you want to use Bond's Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Celerity, which increases your movement speed by 10%, and Rejuvenation, which increases all of your recoveries by 90. Moving on to race. The difference between best and worst race is about 5% of DPS, and there is no content in the entire game that you'll be blocked from completing because of choosing a bad race. With that said, the best races for 12-man content are High Elf and Dark Elf. The best race for 4-man content is Khajiit. Other decent options are Orc and Breton. Moving on to Mundus. Most of the time, you should use the 5th Mundus, which increases your critical chance. If your group isn't providing penetration, you have to either put on Roar of Alkosh, put on some light armor set, like for example Noble Duelist, or switch your Mundus to the Lover. Roar of Alkosh is the best option, as long as you can rely on your teammates to provide synergies. Because even though Alkosh is a support set, it has really good stat lines, and a minor Slayer line. So you'll end up with more DPS with Alkosh and the 5th Mundus, rather than with a light armor set, or with a regular medium DPS set and the Lover Mundus. As for attributes, it's extremely simple. You should always put all 64 points into magicka. Moving on to food. Most of the time, you should use the Arteon Pickled Fish Bowl, which increases your max health and max magicka. Solitude Salmon Millet Soup is a cheaper alternative. For dummy parsing, you can use Tomato Garlic Chutney, which gives you only max magicka. Moving on to potions. Use the Spell Power potions. They'll provide major sorcery and major prophecy, which are crucial buffs. You can craft them by combining Lady's Smoke, Namira's Rot, and Cornflower. If you need more damage mitigation, you can use the armor potions, though this is only possible if you didn't replace Inner Light with any situational skill. It will be a small DPS decrease, as you will no longer have major savagery and prophecy on your backbar. You will also have to refresh Bull Netch every 25 seconds, instead of 30, as it will now be your only source of major brutality and sorcery. You can craft them by combining Baglos, Mountain Flower, and Mudcrab Chitin. Now as for parsing, the most optimal setup for a dummy parse is the one with Highland Sentinel, and I managed to reach 121k with it. If we change the Highland Sentinel to Unsoul's Torment, we end up with the regular setup, and I managed to reach 116.8k with that one. Now here's a full recording of the 121k parse. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.